Business Focus with Kudzi Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
23 minutes before the news at 8 a.m. is our time. Good morning, as always, and welcome to the world of business. This is the Business Forum right here on Akabi Talk 100.4 FM. Arare's Heartbeats. We get to discuss a lot of what's happening in the world of business with Kudzi Sharara. Business Focus, as always, every single day. All you need to do is just bring in those questions, heated questions you always have with your friends, with your business partners. Bring them forward on 0719 100404. 0719 100404. Kudzi Sharara will be able to help us with understanding of what's happening in the world of business. Good morning to you, Kudzi. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, Pakistan, and good morning, everyone.
Great. Thank you so much, Kudzi. Before we look into the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update, did you manage to get the response we were expecting from Zimra yesterday?
No, it didn't come through.
Okay.
I thought I didn't follow up because they'd already said that they were going to send the responses.
Okay.
But so it didn't come through, but I'm sure they're listening. And today... I'm sure they will come through for us. Maybe we should give them a call.
Okay.
If they don't give us the responses today, we'll give them a call tomorrow. Can I find my answers? I'm not corporate affairs office manager. We could my answers. He must talk to his officer so that we can get a response.
Yeah.
But today we'll also be talking about Zimura later on.
Right, not a problem. Let's begin with Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, a trading update considering it the second day into the week.
Yeah, it's actually happy days on this resi, Tinashe, especially when you consider that we have done a quarter since the introduction of ZIG. ZIG was introduced in April, 5th of April. And so up to now, we have done like a quarter now, 3 months of trading. And I think it's happy days for investors on this resi. When you look at the returns that they are getting there, when you look at for the 3 months, the ZSE is up by 31.25%. That's the ZSE All Share Index up by 31.25%. And when you consider where inflation is, which is almost in flat to negative, you can see those returns are real returns. Even in US dollars, these are real returns. It's like you've put in $100 and you're now at $131. So that's a really good return there on the All Share Index. And then you look at the top 10 index, even better, with a 38.83% gain since the introduction of ZIG. Again, the wonderful returns there if you consider that these are real returns. And I think I'm happy for sellers, those who are selling, because in a way they are selling at prices that are higher than when they bought, so they are making money. But I'm also very, very happy for holders, those who bought and are still holding to those shares, because they are still in the game. They are still with an opportunity to get more for their money. But for buyers, obviously, they are buying at much higher prices than prices were at the beginning of the year. They are buying at higher prices than they were at when the ZIG was introduced, when everybody was crying that the market was in the negative territory. Some people were picking shares, they were buying shares. We always say that the basic rule of stock market investment is buy low, sell high. So those who were buying when the market was low, when everybody was trying to move away from the market, those who were buying are the ones that are now benefiting because the prices have since come up.
So like you said, Kuti, right now there's all smiles at the stock exchange.
Yes.
Is this the right time for me to go buy shares?
Like I said, buy low, sell high. So if you believe that these stocks that are listed are still undervalued, if there is any stock on the market that you believe is undervalued, is trading below its intrinsic value. Remember intrinsic value, those days where you used to do the financial term of the day.
Yes.
Intrinsic value, that's like the real value of the stock. And if you believe that the share is trading below the intrinsic value, it's undervalued, then you can buy. Because I always say, like, every day is a buy day. But what you are basically doing now is, maybe for some of these shares, you are paying more than you could have paid yesterday. You are paying more than you could have paid last month, or more than you could have, because it's on an upward trajectory. So I always want to buy when the market is weak.
Okay.
When it seems like no one is interested in the market, that's when you look for your good stocks.
Saka ka concept ke kutenga ma shares kakafanana neka concept ke sell. Kuna sero huri yatanga. Zvinhu zvadzikiswa
Yeah, you
mutengo, mhanya
get
unotenga
bargains.
ipapo.
The only difference with sell, probably buying chinja chiri mudisplay chiro nezuva chapa discount manje.
Oh, vakungokupa price, the real price yanga iri kunyepa achida profit.
So yeah, but yeah, I'm not saying that there are no discounts in these shops. Yeah, there are discounts, but some of them they're towards their expiry date or maybe they're out of fashion. You know how it is with
Like
fashion, especially these days.
Coming out of winter and we want to sell this for summer.
But with stocks now, if it's a good counter, if it's a good fundamentals, it doesn't matter. Maybe it's just selling pressure because someone had a school fees. It's selling pressure because a company has failed to. It knows it cannot go and borrow money so that they can buy foreign currency to import some stuff. So they will go and sell the shares that they are holding so that they can use that money to go and buy foreign currency on the interbank market, because it's not allowed to borrow money and then go and buy at the interbank market, which is a misnomer though in markets. But yeah, so just maybe looking at yesterday, how did the market perform? Still some gains there. All share index up by 2.03%. Top 10 index putting on 2.14%. And then the VFX, that's the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, adding 0.34%. Top riser was ZB Financial Holdings, putting on 15%. TSL adding 14.99%. Talking about ZB Financial Holdings, I think on Friday they had an SMEs Expo. I saw more than 200. They had about more than 200 SMEs that were exhibiting their products, and it was good to network during that expo. Some really upcoming and startups that were there, and some really good nuggets in terms of how to do business in Zimbabwe from Dr. Divine Lukula, who was also one of the presenters there. So it was a good expo that was taking place on Friday. And then TSO also putting on 14.99%, Nampec adding 13.3%, EcoCash adding 10.64%, CBZ putting on 9.65%. And then on the downside, the biggest loser was Wildo. I wouldn't call it, well, it was the biggest loser, but just by 0.97%. So not much movement there. OK Zimbabwe shedding 0.71%. We spoke about the OK Zimbabwe results just recently. And then Rio Zim also down by 0.08%, Ariston 0.05%. So there were only 4 counters that were trading in the negative territory. And AFDIS is now the best, the top performer on the ZSC, up by 108%, followed by CBZ 102%, NTS 95.21%. Smart money, where most investors were putting their money yesterday, it was Econet, about 1.2 million ZIG going into Econet, and then 374,000 going into Delta. Mikkels, CBZ, and EcoCash also getting a sizable chunk of the funds that were invested. And Tinashe, earlier on I was saying that the ZSC has really done well. I think when you compare it with regional markets, I think it's only behind the Nigeria Stock Exchange as well as the Lusaka Stock Exchange in Zambia. These are the 2 markets that have performed better than the Zimbabwean markets so far in the year. Otherwise, so it's really a good performance. And I'm talking in US dollar terms. I'm not talking in their local currencies. I'm talking when everything, if it's the Naira, it has been converted in US dollar gains. If it's the Zambian Kwacha, the gains have been converted into US. And so the top 2 is Nigeria Stock Exchange with a 44.82% gain, followed by Zambia 33.81%, then Zimbabwe there with a 31% gain since the introduction of ZIG. So really some good returns there on the ZSE.
Okay, so kudzine zuro ndaitoti nchena zvangu dhendo vanangonzwa I overheard these gentlemen vachingoita nyaya dzavo achiti new tax laws ekuZimbabwe Stock Exchange aya. You know, I wanted to stop ndinyatsonzwisisa, but I just said to myself, let me put it up as a question for Kudzi tomorrow to find out more. Tell us more about the new tax laws on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. Yeah,
so on the ZSC, when you trade, especially when you sell your shares, pane inonzi capital gains with withholding tax. Yekuti iwewe Satinashi watengesa mashares waibatirwa inonzi unobatirwa inonzi capital gains withholding tax, yekuti iwe vanoibata because vanenge vachiti pamwe tina shaazo declare tax because munhu wese do you know kuti munhu wese anofanira kuenda nemax returns ake kuzimbura at the end of the year. Munhu wese ane income unoita mezi dzako kuti ini ndakazoita kaside hustle kangu ndikaita mari yakati ndikazoita chakati ndikaita mari yakati saka tax yenyu ndeipi. So it also comes with mashares. Saka but vanoziva kuti muzimbabwe vanhu vazhinji havazouye kuzimbura handiti. Saka vanokubatira inonzi capital gains withholding tax yaibatwa. Remember ndo yatakamboita noise yakambonzi 40% ikazoreduced to 4%. Now government has said through a statutory instrument they've said now it's now 2%.
Yadzika food.
But instead of it being a withholding tax only, it is now a final tax. Because zvainzi kudhara after wambobatirwa capital gains withholding tax waizoenda kuzimura monera macalculations enyu pamwe wozobatirwa inonzi capital gains tax. Vakunyatsona kuti no iwo tinacho pawakatengesa mashares ako wakamatengesa because remember mashares aringotarisa kuti selling price yako havasi kutarisa kuti wakaita profit here ukaita loss here because havatarisi zvaizvokuti wakamatenga at 10 ukazomatengesa at 8 whether wakamatenga at 10 ukazotengesa at 8 unobatirwa capital gains withholding tax handiti. But waizokwanisa kuenda kuzimura unoti no inini mashares amakandibatira capital gains withholding tax inini andakamatenga at 10 ndikamatengesa at 8 saka handina kuita any gain handiti woitirwa metse dzako nezimura wopiwa mangana ari uchidzoserwa imwe mari yako dzoserwa handiti. But now vakuti it's a final tax. This capital gains withholding tax is now a final tax. Ukabhadhara iyoyo hakusisina need yekuti uzoenda nemashares ako kuti neni ndakanga matenga pamari yako ati ndikazomadai. So for the next 6 months this is the tax law that will be in effect. I think they are going to be experimenting with it for the 6 months to see how it works out. But so it's now 2%. That's the capital gains withholding tax. It's now also a final tax. However, it's more than what it was 2 years ago. It used to be about 1.5%, but now it's 2%. So there's zindakutorera. But you know how it is. So that's the new taxes that are applying on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So in total, when you're buying your shares on the ZSC, the tax that you are now paying is a little bit lower than what you were paying a few months ago, a few weeks ago. They've since revised that. Yeah.
So there's no advantage.
It's not advantage. Kana uchibhadhara tax shoma 4% to 2%. It's good. It means that when you're selling your shares, you are probably giving them about 5.44% before this was done. When you sell your shares, you tax your way, but in total, not only pampani nonzi brokerage levy yaunopa tax stock broker wako kuti watengesa mashares on my behalf. This is what you get. Anowana 0.92% broker yeye. Pane nozonzi Zimbabwe Stock Exchange levy 0.1%, kwaita securities and exchange levy, kwaita deposit investor protection levy, tuma percentage. In total tukanga choose it at 5.44%, but after these tax changes it's now 3.44%. So obviously kamwe ka 2% wakubhadhara 3.44% when you sell shares. When you buy shares, the total tax that you pay is 1.69%, 1.693%. When you sell, it's 3.443%. So in total, instead of paying 7.136%, you're now paying 5.136% in form of tax. So this is what these are the taxes that you now pay when you buy and sell your shares on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange.
All right, Kudzi, there's a question on our WhatsApp platform who says, what's the position with Truworths? Are they still suspended? And another one says, what's the share price for OK Zimbabwe?
Yeah, Truworths is still under suspension. It's still suspended from trading on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. That's Truworths. And but you might want to know that there is a cautionary statement that was recently issued by the company. I think if it's not on Friday, then it's over the weekend. Truworths issued a cautionary statement saying that their major shareholder, there is some corporate action that is likely to take place. I'm not sure what it is because it's just a cautionary statement. statement, it doesn't say much. It just tells you that there is a material transaction that might take place at the company, but it's still under suspension, as it were. So maybe the company will, in due course, call for an EGM where, if you're a shareholder, you can go and vote for or against whatever decisions that they want to make with regards to this transaction. So that's true as there. And the other question was
what's the share price
for K Zimbabwe? It's trading at 52.84 zig cents. Because my trading at Zimbabwe Stock Exchange is in cents, so it's 52.84 zig cents. So you can then convert to see it, how much is it, but it's 52.84 zig cents.
Okay. There's a question as well that says, Kudzi, what's your comment on the Insurance and Pensions Commission, IPEC, that has announced the stringent measures against industry players after revealing that only 1 out of 1,200 pension funds met its compensation scheme requirements? Commissioner Grace Muradzikwa disclosed these developments at IPEC's recent annual general meeting in Harare. What's your comment?
Look, Tinashe, when it comes to pension funds and there was a commission of inquiry that was done in, I think it's in 2000, way back, I think around 2010, 2011, thereabout, or 2009, I'm not mistaken. But there was a commission of inquiry that was put together by government, and it came up with the findings and some recommendations. And it was found that, government policies were to blame for whatever pensioners lost. Also, the IPEC itself was also to blame for, as the regulator, for whatever happened to the pension funds. But the pension funds themselves were also found wanting in terms of how they were managing things. For example, the pension funds, they made it look like all investments that they had made, or most of the investment that they had made during the hyperinflation era, were eroded by inflation, and they were left with no assets. But the Commission of Inquiry found out that no, some assets were still there. Some assets were just moved from being policyholders' assets to shareholders' assets, and then it was then found out to say the pension funds must compensate the pensioners. They must compensate the pensioners, and that has been decided, and it must happen. Now, IPEC then asked these companies to say, come up with your payment schemes. How are you going to compensate? Your compensation schemes, come with them. And only one, I think it's the Mimosa pension fund, that has come through and has had its scheme approved. The rest have not. And IPEC is saying we are going to take criminal proceedings, what they call them, but against these pension funds. So it's going to be a
1 out of 1,200.
Yes, only one has had its scheme approved by IPEC. So criminal procedures are going to be taken against those that have not complied. So it will be an interesting battle. Maybe it will spill into the courts of law, and so it's going to be interesting how it's going to be. Yeah, we'll wait and see. But I think pensioners I think there's need for them to be compensated.
Yeah. All right. So just briefly, we've got 5 minutes to go, Kudzi. I want to put two things here. There's a question that says, Nai Kudzi, matex akuwanda ku Zimbabwe Stock Exchange haya. Ndikangoenda hangu ku Joburg stock market. Are they not driving away investment?
I think asikuwanda because ndo akagara aripo. Maybe the value ndo yange yambotikwire kuenda ku 4% or at some point. But in terms of the number of taxes, they have always been there, and most of them, they are not much. So maybe you need to look at the ultimate tax. For example, if you sell your shares, you are being charged 3.44%. It means that when you gain, ukaita gains akopa stock market, kana gain less than 3%. Usamanya unotengesa chindagaina because uchazobhadhara tax 3.44%. So it means whatever gains that you record on the ZSC must be above this 1.69% yaunobhadhara uchitenga ne 3.44% yaunobhadhara wakutengesa, which is about 5 point something percent. I think if we continue on this trajectory where inflation is low, right, then I think maybe they might consider revising them downwards, because if there is no inflation and if there's no currency depreciation, 1% gain should be a real gain. But with these taxes, then even if you gain by 1%, 2%, those not so force on to pay more because angada kutanga recover my costs of transaction, which is this 5.44%. Before I was talking about ndaita mari. So out of the 31% and that my gains in the ZSC, 31%. Also visa or subtractor my costs of transactions are in total 5.44% what my reduce. So it means your real gain on the ZSC, so just the inflation and other things, your real gain is 25%. You factor in inflation, which is at the moment if it's in US, if it's in ZIG, which is where the ZSC operates, is 0.00%. So there is no inflation effect there. If it's currency depreciation, maybe there isn't as well. So that's how it works.
Okay, could you briefly 3 minutes to go now? Ndinomubvunzo one every single now and then. Zimra inowana kupi mari. Where does Zimra get money?
Yeah, so it comes from taxes, but I'm sure your question is good. Okay, my tax acho ndiye kupi kurumbobva mari yakawanda.
Yeah, exactly.
Zonzi, because Zimra is a tax collection agent ye government. They don't mobilize my resources atiri kuzona achishandiswa negovernment, right? And vanenge vaine matargets vanenge vakazvisetera nevakaseterwa, and according to their latest vakaita AGM last week, they failed to meet their targets. Right, as Zimra, what they were expecting to collect is not what they collected. They failed to meet their targets. I'm trying to look at the actual number in terms of by what percentage that they failed. So they were looking at collecting 22.3 trillion. This is what they were looking at collecting, 22.3 trillion. But they only
trillion ZIG.
ZIG, yes, okay. Yes. But they only collected 19.35 trillion ZIG. So they missed their targets. But to come back to your question, the bulk of the taxes that Zimra gets is from your VAT.
Okay.
VAT is the biggest contributor, 29.1%. 29.1%, that's what they get from VAT. The second biggest contributor is individual taxes. That nobody as individuals, but nobody pay as UN as individuals. Though the second biggest one is 18.7%, and I'm talking about the up to the end of the year 2023. 18.7% come from individual tax. Makamba and corporates, they contributed 10.9%. We mean there's a problem with Makamba and Kweduku. I know Zanguta has 0 and Fanangari per top, but there's actually a reversal, a decrease in terms of what we collected as a country from corporates. It means that corporates are not making that much in terms of profits, or maybe the tax bracket is not the net is not a lot of people are not in the tax bracket or in the tax net. Zimra, the country is 60% informal. According to Zimra, 60% of the economy is informal, which means that the tax net is not there as well.
All right,
maybe we'll talk about Zimra more tomorrow. Maybe they will give us.
I'll leave you with this question for tomorrow. Anzi, because of what you have said, Zimra has failed to meet the targets. So what does that mean to our national budget? If Zimra has failed to meet the target, what's going to happen? We'll respond
let's start with that tomorrow.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we're going to response here.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Kudzi, for Business Focus. For today, we discuss more tomorrow.